Good day, young people. It is my privilege to share with you some little insights on how you can manage the funds that we are using for, there are things that we need to do like Voice of Youth or special evangelism or whatever projects that you want. This material probably can help you a little bit just to maintain what you are doing is trustworthy and the work will move forward. So for this time, I'm going to share with you is about simple evangelism fund management. Okay, or whatever projects that you have. So it's simple fund management for special projects that we have in the churches. Okay, in simple management of funds, the number one key here is prepare a budget. You know already your program, you know already what to do, but you need to have a budget. And this budget, you have to identify all the resources that will be available for this project. And then, of course, after identifying the resources that you have, maybe you will find other things, solicitation or special donation, maybe from your own pocket. It will be part of the resources for that project. And then, after you have identified the available resources, you also need to identify all your expenses for that project, okay? All your expenses for that project. And then, live within your means. That means this is the resources that you are able to identify, and these are all the expenses. You need to make sure that you live within that means or within that resources. We have a saying here in the Philippines. That saying is, in Tagalog, it runs like this. Paglaki ng butones, paglaki ng uhalis. So in English, the bigger the buttons, the wider the buttonholes. That means there is always not a deficiency in the resources than the expense. The expense is always bigger than the resources. But of course, the Lord will provide you the difference. And you can be creative in making sure, because this is the Lord's work. And then, sticking to your budget. The budget is useless when you don't stick to it. Remember this, young people. You are successful in preparing the budget, but if you don't get to follow it, that budget is useless and it's just a waste of effort. And then, do not spend for things not listed in the budget. Right? Don't spend for things not listed in the budget. It's similar to you are just ignoring the budget. All right? Let's go a little detail on determine your resources. What are your resources for let's say the Voice of Youth? Okay, you plan, young people, you plan to have a Voice of Youth. So what are the resources available? Okay, the number one source probably that you can have is the support from the church. So if you want a support from the church, you need to present a proposal. And then this proposal, you will include what you want to do, and this is the outcome, the desired outcome. And once you are able to produce this project proposal and submit it to the church board, I'm very specific because you're asking for help from the church, it goes to the church board. And the church will examine that, and if they are able to do, and according to also to their available resources, they will be able to support you. Okay, so that's one, provision from the church. Maybe the church can have a special appropriation also coming from the conference. It could be part of that, and the church board will know this. And then another source is fundraising. Okay, fundraising. You go to your friends, your relatives, and ask for financial support. And most of the time, I tell you, it will come from yourself. And that is very noble. You just to dig from your pocket and include that as part of the fundraisings that you are doing. And then, when you do this fundraising, always acknowledge donations with a receipt. If possible, the receipt from the church, so it's official. Otherwise, you can just say receive the amount of from, and then you sign your name that you receive that amount. And then you submit that to your treasurer, and the treasurer can, treasurer of the church, issue an official receipt, and that receipt you can give it to your donor later. Or maybe you can just take a picture. We are high-tech now. Take a picture of it and send it to the donor. And then, another thing, there are people who wants to assist. They are willing to help in the program, but they don't have cash. And so what they will do, it's either they will make a pledge or they will pledge in kind. Let's say, okay, your project is Voice of Youth, and then a friend says, I don't have cash, but I can get some materials that you can give away. You can give for as giveaways. Or maybe they can donate a Bible. Each one can give a Bible, and that is very good donation in kind, but you have to acknowledge them and list them separately. Okay, and then you need also to promote your program to the church as a whole. In the churches, you need to promote, because other people, if the project just goes to the church board, it's a very limited group of people. But when you are allowed by the church to promote it in the congregation, you will have a wider audience. And who knows, the Holy Spirit will touch those people, and they will give either in kind or in cash, and then you will have enough resources. But of course, again, after you have determined the resources that you have, now it's the time to plan for your expenses. All right. This is a practice, good practice. If offerings are collected for this project, for Voice of Youth or evangelism, or whatever project, the treasurer of the church must record the total collection, and it will be added from the provision already voted by the church board. Okay? So if you are allowed to have a special collection after you have promoted the program, the collection from that offering must be remitted first to the treasurer of the church and record it, and then when it is disbursed, it will be an additional funds for the project already voted. Okay? All right. The next item is identify your expenses. What are the expenses for your project? Okay, let's say Voice of Youth. List all your expenditures. If this is Voice of Youth, what is the number one expense that you will have to spend? Number one is promotional. You need to promote. And so what are the costs in promotional? Maybe you will have banners or flyers, so you will determine how much would that be. And then, of course, when you come to the evangelism activities already, you will need transportation. You need to go and visit the interest or collect the interest so that they can be in your place of meeting, and that will cost also. And then another example of the expenses is meals or snacks. It's good to give those guests with snacks, or the team itself. When you have a team, and then you give them a little bit of snacks, then they are at least refreshed. And then, of course, other things, materials. Okay, ball pens, pencils, papers, registration cards, those small things. And then, of course, you need to have Bibles, because if you're going to do Voice of Youth, you need to have Bibles so that those who will respond to the gospel and accept Christ, it is better for them to receive the Word of God for themselves. And it will be personal, it will be meaningful to them, and they will treasure that Bible. And then, of course, other giveaways, maybe just to maintain the interest of the listeners, you need to put some giveaways. Well, of course, nowadays, you can use GCash, or you can use pamphlets or books, small books or magazine, any kind of giveaways that would be meaningful to them. And then, of course, some you need to have to spend for sound system, but I hope the church can provide that. But anyway, I just listed them there. So those are the examples of the identification of expenses. Of course, there are other things, and then other things that you cannot identify. the technique is put miscellaneous. So that all the expenses that you will put, you are not able to list, would fall under miscellaneous. And I'm just hoping that the miscellaneous expense is not too big. Okay, here is a sample of a budget. I know it will be projected. So let's say, okay, Voice of Youth allocation from the church. Because of your proposal, and the church accepted the proposal, and they said, okay, we will give $250. Or let's use peso. Let's say 12,500. Okay, 12,500 for from the church. And then there are pledges in your solicitation and fundraising. You're able to raise around $100, or let's say 5,000 pesos. So, and that's all. And the total funds available is 18,000. Now you are already able to identify your resources. And now it's time for you to list down all your expenses. Okay, and here's the sample of expenses. All right, as I mentioned a while ago, promotional. Let's say promotional for the banner and flyers, let's say 1,250. And then transportation, let's say you are going to hold your Voice of Youth for 40 nights. So that would be 14 times, let's say 600. So 40 nights times 600, that's equal to 8,400. Okay? Is that correct? 8,400. And then meal snacks, 40 nights, maybe you want to spend 300. I'm just hoping, one technique here, when you go for Voice of Youth, sometimes there are good people, good-hearted people, that they provide snacks for you. But of course, it's good to put them in the budget. So 14 times 300, that's around 4,200. And then, of course, materials, cards, pencils, markers, etc. Let's say 800. I think that is very conservative. Or very, I don't know, very small, but let's say 800. And then giveaways. In the giveaways, you need to give something that is really, really meaningful and worthy. And I put here 3,500 because you will probably need to buy Bibles. And Bibles are not cheap. But of course, you can solicit Bibles. This can be given in kind by the donors. But I'm putting here 3,500. And then, of course, for those small things that maybe you are not able to list down, okay, let's put miscellaneous 350. Now, I total this list of expenses. And when we total it now, it's 18,500. So what shall we do? I emphasized a while ago that we need to live within our means. It's either we adjust on the transportation or in the meals or snacks. So you just reduce it by 500, then we will have a balanced budget. Now that you have this balanced budget, let's now go to the keeping the trust. This is very important for us, especially if you are the one in charge of the finances of this activity. It is good for you to always be transparent and be accountable. And this is, to me, is very, very important. Okay, how to maintain, these are just tips to maintain trust. And this is very simple. Number one, always keep record of all your transactions. Whatever the transaction is, keep the record of it. You may not have the accounting background that you had to be very formal or very technical in the recording. Just record everything, and then you just separate the income or the resources that you receive. You just separate it, and this is, let's say you put, donations or from the church, you just list it down. And then on the other page is all your expenses. Okay, aside from recording all your transaction, this is tip, and not only to us who are holding the money of the activity, but to everyone. Okay, this will apply to your leaders or to the coordinators and things, whoever. When you receive a donation for this initiative, always issue a receipt. Whether it's official or not, always issue a receipt. Let's say somebody gave you, acknowledge it, receive, let's say the amount is 500, receive the amount of 500 pesos or $100, and then put the date and you sign it, give it to the one who gave you the money, and you receive the money. Okay? It is a proof that you received the money, and also the proof for the donor that he or she gave the money. All right? So this is very important. Always issue a receipt. And then when you are the one giving out money, when you give money or you spend for something, get also a proof that you have paid for something. So whether it is a sales invoice or just an acknowledgement that you give this money, let's say because you are spending for the transportation and the driver doesn't have the official receipt. So just say, receive the amount of, let's say, 500 for this date, transportation, and then let him sign. And you keep that, or maybe he can make a duplicate so that the person who gave the money will also have a proof that he received the money from you. So this is very important. The work of the one who are entrusted with money is very, very important. You know why? People looking at us, they are always on the watch. They are keeping their eyes on us because we are the one holding the money. So this is one way to keep your integrity and to keep that you are trustworthy when you become accountable to it. And be transparent. And then, keep all the documents for reporting purposes. It is always important that you need to give a report. Because when there is a report, people will know what happened. Then you become transparent and you have accounted for everything. And then you become a good and trustworthy servant, and also in maintaining the trust of those who support this endeavor. So, young people, my appeal to you is when you submit yourselves to the Lord for this kind of project, when you come to the church, you will notice the church will be very, very supportive of you. And this is encouraging also to the old ones like us. When young people come to us and present their project, our hearts are overjoyed because the young people are doing the work of the Lord. And so, at this point, I would like to leave just this. Be transparent, keep all the accounts, and you will be trusted always. This is my prayer for you, that you will do the work that was entrusted to you faithfully.